What if 5 friends could vanish without a trace after a simple basketball game, leaving behind only their abandoned car and a mystery that has haunted investigators for over 40 years? Welcome to Sherlock Mode. February 24, 1978. The small town of Yuba City, California, was blanketed in the crisp winter air as 5 young men prepared for what they thought would be a perfect evening. Ted Weiher, 32, carefully folded his Gateway Gators basketball uniform, his eyes bright with excitement for tomorrow's Special Olympics tournament. Jack Madruga, 30, polished his turquoise 1969 Mercury Montego, proud to be the driver for his 4 best friends. Bill Sterling, 29, and Jack Hewitt, 24, chatted enthusiastically about the upcoming game, while Gary Mathias, 25, a former Army veteran managing his schizophrenia with medication, seemed unusually calm and focused. These weren't just friends, they were family. All 5 men lived with their parents due to mild intellectual disabilities or psychiatric conditions, but they were high-functioning and independent. Their bond was forged through their love of basketball and their participation in the Gateway Projects program. At 6 p.m., they piled into Madruga's Mercury Montego, heading to Chico State University to watch UC Davis face off against Chico State. The drive was routine, a straight shot north through California's Sacramento Valley, a journey they'd made before. The game was electric. UC Davis won 84-79, and the 5 friends cheered loudly from the stands. Their favorite team had triumphed, and tomorrow they would have their own chance at glory in the Special Olympics tournament. After the game, just before 10 p.m., they stopped at a convenience store in Chico. The clerk would later remember them vividly. 5 grown men buying candy, milk, and snacks like children, their excitement palpable even as the store was closing. This was the last time anyone would see them alive. As they left the store with their snacks, they climbed back into the Mercury Montego and drove into the night. They should have been home by 11 p.m., but they never arrived. When morning came and the 5 men hadn't returned, their families knew something was terribly wrong. These weren't rebellious young men who stayed out all night. They were responsible, predictable, and deeply connected to their families. By February 25th, missing persons reports flooded the Yuba County Sheriff's Office. Search teams scoured the direct route between Chico and Yuba City, but found nothing. No trace of the men or their distinctive turquoise car. Then, on February 28th, for days after the disappearance, a Forest Service worker made a chilling discovery. Deep in the Plumas National Forest, 70 miles from Chico and far from any logical route home, sat Madruga's Mercury Montego. The car was found near Rogers Cow Camp, on a rugged mountain road at 4,000 feet elevation. The vehicle was stuck in just 5 to 6 inches of snow, but investigators quickly realized something deeply disturbing. 5 men could have easily pushed it free. More puzzling still, the car was in perfect working condition. The gas tank was a quarter full, the engine could start, and the windows were rolled completely down despite the freezing temperature. Inside, investigators found maps, a basketball program, and wrappers from the snacks they'd bought. But the 5 men had vanished. No footprints, no signs of struggle, no indication of where they had gone. It was as if they had simply stepped out of the car and disappeared into the wilderness. The location made no sense. To reach this remote spot, they would have had to turn off the main highway in Oroville, drive through winding mountain roads for 25 miles, cross 2 bridges over Lake Oroville, and continue onto increasingly treacherous terrain. Why would 5 men, eager to get home for their big tournament, take such a detour? And why would they abandon their car on a night when temperatures dropped well below freezing? As search teams expanded their efforts, they faced brutal winter conditions. An ice storm hit during the first day of searching, nearly killing 2 searchers from hypothermia and heart problems. The search was temporarily called off. But there was one witness to what happened that night. Joseph Shantz, a 55-year-old man, was driving the same mountain road when his car became stuck in snow. As he suffered what he believed was a heart attack, he saw something that would haunt him forever. Shantz reported seeing the Mercury Montego parked behind him, surrounded by several people. When he called for help, they turned off their flashlights and fell silent. Later, he saw what appeared to be a red pickup truck arrive on the scene. Shantz spent the night in his car, running out of gas and heat. When morning came, he walked to a nearby lodge, passing the abandoned Mercury Montego. He would later become the key witness, but his story raised more questions than answers. For months, the case went cold. The 5 men had simply vanished into the wilderness. But as spring arrived and the snow began to melt, the mountain would finally give up its terrible secrets. June 4, 1978. A group of motorcyclists were riding through the forest when they spotted something unusual. A Forest Service trailer about 20 miles from where the car was found. The window was broken, and inside, they made a horrifying discovery. Inside the trailer, wrapped in 8 blankets, lay the body of Ted Weiher. His appearance was shocking. He had grown a 13-week beard and lost half his 200-pound body weight. His feet were severely frostbitten, and he had died of starvation and hypothermia. But here's what made this discovery truly bizarre. The trailer was stocked with food, heating materials, and a propane heating system. Ted could have survived indefinitely, yet he had used none of these resources. Why didn't he help himself? Even more mysterious, investigators found Gary Mathias' shoes in the trailer. This meant Gary had likely been there too, but his body was nowhere to be found. What happened to the 5th man? Over the following days, search teams found the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling about 11 miles from the abandoned car. Their bodies had been ravaged by animals, leaving only bones scattered through the forest. On June 7th, Jack Hewitt's body was discovered even closer to the trailer. Like the others, he had died from exposure and hypothermia. 4 friends were now confirmed dead, but Gary Mathias remained missing. The evidence painted a horrifying picture. After abandoning their car, the 5 men had walked uphill through deep snow for nearly 20 miles in freezing temperatures. They were dressed only in light clothing suitable for a basketball game, not a mountain survival situation. But the most disturbing question remained. Why did Ted Weiher die of starvation in a trailer full of food? Medical examination revealed he had survived for 8 to 13 weeks, conscious and alert, yet he never opened the canned goods that surrounded him. The food wasn't even locked away, it was right there in the trailer. There was also a propane heating system that could have kept him warm, but he never used it. He simply lay there, wrapped in blankets, slowly starving to death. Investigators theorized that Ted's frostbitten feet might have prevented him from moving around effectively, but this didn't explain why he couldn't reach the food or why he didn't attempt to signal for help. The trailer had windows and a door he could have used. The mystery deepened when investigators discovered that the trailer was only 1.5 miles from a ranger station. If the men had continued just a little further, they would have reached safety and warmth. Why did they stop at this particular trailer? Some investigators believed Gary Mathias held the key to the mystery. Unlike his friends, Gary was not intellectually disabled. He was a former Army veteran with wilderness survival experience. Could he have led them into the mountains? Gary's schizophrenia was well controlled with medication, but investigators wondered if something had triggered an episode. His shoes found in the trailer suggested he had been there, but his body was never found. Did he survive? Did he escape? The families were devastated but determined to find answers. They hired private investigators, offered rewards, and pressured authorities to continue searching. But as years passed, the case grew cold. Joseph Sean's testimony became crucial to the investigation. He described seeing multiple people around the car, including what appeared to be a woman and a baby. But his account was inconsistent, and some questioned its reliability. The case took on national attention, with media dubbing it the American Dyatlov Pass after the famous Russian incident where 9 hikers died under mysterious circumstances. The parallels were unsettling. Theories emerged ranging from the plausible to the bizarre. Some suggested the men encountered hostile individuals who forced them into the mountains. Others proposed that Gary Mathias had a psychotic break and led his friends to their deaths. A particularly chilling theory suggested that the men were being pursued by someone or something that forced them to abandon their car and flee into the forest. But what could have been so threatening that they chose near certain death over confrontation? The physical evidence supported the theory that they were trying to escape something. The car windows were rolled down, suggesting they had left quickly. Their path led consistently uphill, away from the road and deeper into the wilderness. But escape from what? The men had no known enemies, no involvement in criminal activity, and no reason to fear anyone. They were gentle, vulnerable individuals who lived quiet lives with their families. Some investigators focused on the red pickup truck that Joseph Shantz claimed to have seen. Who was driving it? Why were they in such a remote location? And what was their connection to the 5 missing men? The truck was never found, and no witnesses came forward to identify it. Like so many aspects of this case, it remained a tantalizing clue that led nowhere, adding to the mystery rather than solving it. As the investigation continued, strange details emerged. In late March 1978, searchers found 5 pieces of gold-colored cloth tied to trees just 1.25 miles from the abandoned car. What did these cloth pieces mean? The cloth was never identified or connected to the victims. It could have been trail markers, signals for help, or completely unrelated to the case. Like everything else, it raised more questions than answers. Years passed, and the case remained officially unsolved. Gary Mathias was never found, despite extensive searches throughout the forest. His family held on to hope that he might still be alive, but as time went on, that hope dimmed. The Forest Service trailer where Ted Weiher died became a grim memorial to the tragedy. It was eventually removed, but the location remains a haunting reminder of the questions that were never answered. Modern investigators have reviewed the case using new technology and techniques, but the fundamental questions remain unanswered. DNA analysis, advanced forensics, and digital reconstruction have all failed to crack the mystery. The case has been featured in documentaries, books, and podcasts, most recently in Netflix's Files of the Unexplained. Each retelling brings new attention, but no new answers. Brian Bernardis, the cold case investigator for the Yuba County Sheriff's Office, continues to work on the case. He believes there are still people out there who know something about what happened that night. The families of the victims have never given up hope for answers. They want to know why their loved ones made that fatal detour, why they abandoned their car, and what happened to Gary Mathias. Some theories suggest that the men encountered something or someone that terrified them enough to risk death in the mountains. But what could be so frightening that it would drive 5 men to such desperation? The location where they abandoned their car remains significant. Rogers Cow Camp was a remote area with no cell phone coverage, no nearby buildings, and no reason for anyone to be there after dark. Could the men have been victims of a crime that went wrong? Perhaps they witnessed something they shouldn't have, or encountered dangerous individuals involved in illegal activities. The 1970s were a time when remote mountain areas were sometimes used for drug operations or other criminal activities. The Plumas National Forest, with its vast wilderness and limited law enforcement presence, could have been such a location. But if they were victims of a crime, why were they allowed to walk away? Why not simply eliminate them at the scene? The fact that they were able to travel 20 miles suggests they weren't immediately under threat. Another theory focuses on Gary Mathias' mental state. Despite being on medication, schizophrenia can sometimes cause paranoid delusions. Could Gary have convinced his friends that they were in danger when they weren't? This theory would explain why the men followed Gary into the wilderness. They trusted him completely. As the only one without intellectual disabilities, his word carried weight with the group. But this theory has problems too. Gary's medication was working well, and he had been stable for years. His family saw no signs of an impending mental health crisis. The most haunting aspect of the case remains Ted Weiher's death in the trailer. How do you explain a man starving to death surrounded by food? It defies logic and human survival instincts. Some medical experts suggest that severe hypothermia and trauma could have affected Ted's judgment and decision-making abilities. Perhaps he was too confused or disoriented to help himself. But others argue that Ted survived for months in the trailer, which required some level of cognitive function. He was able to wrap himself in blankets and presumably find water, so why not food? The case has become a cautionary tale about the vulnerability of individuals with disabilities. These 5 men, despite their challenges, were trying to live independent lives and pursue their dreams. Their story reminds us that behind every unsolved mystery are real people with families who love them. The Yuba County 5 weren't just a puzzle to be solved. They were sons, friends, and teammates. The case continues to fascinate and frustrate investigators, amateur sleuths, and true crime enthusiasts. It has all the elements of a perfect mystery: strange circumstances, conflicting evidence, and no clear resolution. But for the families involved, it's not entertainment. It's an ongoing source of pain and unanswered questions. They want justice, closure, and most of all, they want to know what happened to their loved ones. The Yuba County 5 case remains one of America's most baffling unsolved mysteries. Despite decades of investigation, advanced forensic techniques, and public attention, the truth remains elusive. Let us analyze what we know for certain. 5 men attended a basketball game, bought snacks, and never made it home. Their car was found in an impossible location, 4 died in the wilderness, and 1 vanished without a trace. The evidence suggests they were either forced or convinced to abandon their car and walk into the wilderness. The question is whether this was due to external threats, internal mental health issues, or something else entirely. Joseph Sean's testimony, while inconsistent, remains the only witness account of that night. His description of multiple people in a red pickup truck suggests something more complex than a simple wrong turn. Gary Mathias' disappearance is perhaps the most significant clue. His survival skills, military background, and the discovery of his shoes in the trailer all point to him playing a crucial role in the events. The fact that Ted Weiher survived for months but died of starvation surrounded by food suggests either severe mental impairment from trauma or some external factor preventing him from accessing supplies. The location where they abandoned their car, Rogers Cow Camp, remains significant. It was remote, isolated, and had no legitimate reason for 5 men to be there after dark. The path they took after abandoning the car, consistently uphill into increasingly dangerous terrain, suggests they were either fleeing something or following someone they trusted. 47 years later, the case remains officially unsolved. Gary Mathias is still missing, and the questions that plagued investigators in 1978 continue to haunt them today. Perhaps the truth died with the 4 men who were found, or perhaps it lies buried somewhere in the vast wilderness of the Plumas National Forest. Until Gary Mathias is found or someone comes forward with new information, the mystery endures. The Yuba County 5 case serves as a reminder that some mysteries may never be solved, that some questions may never be answered, and that the truth can sometimes be more elusive than fiction. Their story continues to inspire new investigators, new theories, and new hope that someday, someone will finally unlock the secret of what happened on that cold February night in 1978. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery, like and subscribe to Sherlock Mode.